Welcome to There Is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell. I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I am the owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs, and I've been in business since 1994. Today's podcast is brought to you by Jonathan and Lyn Gildon of the Gildon Group at Realty Pros. They currently have over 280 five-star reviews on Zillow, and they are consummate professionals. I will put their information in today's show notes. And it's also brought to you by Daytona Beach's only overhead door company. The pause to make it dramatic. Because let me tell you, they are simply the best. They have the best customer service. They have the best garage doors. Currently, my house doesn't have an overhead door garage door because when I moved into it, it just didn't have one. And I pay it every day when I open that garage door, and it sounds like a space shuttle is landing in the neighborhood. And I'm sure all of my neighbors wish that I had one. So I will be purchasing one soon, even though the only thing wrong with this garage door is it sounds like it is going up on 10. I don't know, but it's loud. But anyway, they are the best, and I will put their information in the show notes. Jeff and Zach Hawk are the owners of the company. I vouch for each and every one of my sponsors, the Gildons and the Hawks. Great people. Shop them out. All right, so I've got nothing today. You know, it's Sunday, and I hadn't made a podcast in close to a week simply because, for those that don't know, when you buy subscription services, which I do, to put this on Buzzsprout is the company, then I'm limited to how many podcasts I can make. And I was over the amount or close to over the amount, so I had to wait. So I want to get something out there to communicate with everybody about the world of fitness because I'm very passionate about it. I think we all need it. I know it. I mean, this is why I do the podcast, is because since I got into personal training, I wanted to make sure that I always did it right because I really value health and fitness. I mean, long before I started earning a dime for it, I was doing it because I loved it, and it just made my whole life better in every way. So when I went out to become a trainer, I wanted to do it the right way, and I got an education in it, and I've stayed certified, and I kept up on my CECs. Not because I'm trying to toot my own horn or make a commercial for me right now, although it may sound that way, simply because I really want to know what I'm doing. I want to know what I'm talking about. And since I really do believe that I do, and by far I don't know enough, anybody that tells you they do has quit learning, and I lose trust in people like that. So I want to learn more. There's so much more I can learn so I can pass on for sure. But I think I've learned a lot, and I want to make sure I push people in the right direction. That's the whole goal to the podcast. And when I say I've got nothing today, that's not completely true, but I don't really have anything planned out other than when I was sitting here knowing it's time for a podcast. I was thinking about how I get the daily email from Arnold Schwarzenegger. I just think it's really good. I don't agree with everything, but I agree with a lot because you know, he has two exercise scientists, at least one, and then one's maybe a nutrition guy. I don't know, but they work for him and they qualify all of his information because, you know, he admits he's a, an actor, bodybuilder, come politician, and he doesn't have his, training in it. So he wants to have people around that are trained in it, and I respect that greatly. So anyway, he has people to verify his information, and I like most of what he says. And in one of his emails last week, I think it was Fridays, he challenged everybody to do something that they've never done, to walk further, run further, lift heavier, just something, which I totally agree with. And so I'm not like just regurgitating Arnold's email because that would be a ripoff to you, but it did make me think about what my message is to be on that. And it is, do something that's hard for you. So, yeah, do something further, faster, longer, harder, whatever. But that's not always like hard for people. What is hard for you? What is hard for me? Like, what are we going to get the intrinsic motivation out of? What is going to make us feel good about ourselves? Like, what is something that we challenge that's going to make us go, man, I didn't think I could do that. Because I think it's too easy to go by what other people's standards are. We can go out and run a 5K and get an award in our age group or something. And, that's cool. I mean, it's better to than not to, for sure, I think, But if that's your only motivation, I mean, I don't know, you might have missed Motivation 101 when you're in sixth grade, I mean, there has to be a challenge that makes you feel better about yourself. Like, what if you were out there and, you just kind of jogged along because you felt lazy and you didn't feel like pushing yourself? And don't get me wrong, for some people, they can't jog, so jogging along might be a challenge. But for you, it's a walk in the park. And you did it and you got this age group award. I mean, sure, you don't want to be, a dick, so to say, and like not get the award, because I can't stand that with some of the runners and triathletes in our area, probably everywhere, but they're like, they don't go to the award ceremony because it's like, I've got so many of these, meanwhile, the promoters who put it on are like, oh, okay, thank you. I mean, I've been on that end where it's like I'm calling out somebody's name. Oh, they left. They went get coffee, Oh, okay. I mean, so that's rude too. So there's a happy medium. I'm not saying don't appreciate it because, people went out of their way to make awards for you. Not every race company does. But, maybe accept it and then think to yourself, I didn't really earn this, because I didn't really give my best effort. I kind of just didn't feel like it. And that's fine too. That's absolutely fine. I'm not saying don't do events if you're not going to necessarily do your best. I'm saying, what can you do which really makes you go, okay, now that was hard and I didn't think I can do it. Like, I remember when I did a triathlon for the very first time in the early 90s, that was my motivation. I didn't know if I could get through the swim. And not because I couldn't swim. I was a decent swimmer. But because at that stage of my life, I was having like some claustrophobia issues going on. I think I can still get that way at times. And it was a feeling of, it might sound weird, but it was more claustrophobic than fearing the water. It was more like, so if I get all the way out here, I'm trapped. It was this feeling of trapped. And that scared me. And I didn't like that feeling because I felt it in different, areas of my life at the time. And I was just getting ready to finish up college, graduate degree actually at that point. And so I looked at it like, this is a challenge. My friends in the program were doing tries and I thought, that sounds good. But, some of those issues popped in my mind. And I'm like, so you guys swim all the way out there? And, I was starting to get the information. And, but I told myself, I said, well, you got to do it for that reason then, you got to do it for that reason. And so it was almost like this big, tease. It was like this, hard, almost like fate saying, I'm going to make it even worse, because the triathlon I chose to do was the Cypress Gardens triathlon. And at the time it was a reverse order triathlon. So the swim was last, it's usually first, it was last. So here I am, running and then cycling and then knowing I had this swim, and who knows, maybe, my higher power out there was looking out for me because he's like, this is a good thing, who knows, because it worked out. But anyway, the key was, yes, I was nervous, but I did it anyway, and so I remember, it was cool because they had these tires that were all the way lining the entire quarter-mile swim course. And for those that don't realize, a quarter mile in the water is pretty far compared to walking or jogging on a track. So, but there was tires lining it. So I'm like, oh, okay. So if I get like really freaked out, I can grab a tire. And, it never came to that, but I remember I stayed close to the tires, and I just remember swimming like almost back in. I'm like 3/4 of the way in. I was, over the hump, so to say. There's a feeling inside like, holy cow, man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. And then I got to the beach and I finished. I was all happy, and I was proud of myself. And, and I started thinking, like, at the time I had these role models, Dr. Roeder and Mr. Gurgley. They were in my graduate program teachers. And Dr. Roeder was talking about doing triathlons from the time he was in his 50s. Like he started late. And he said that a big reason why he did it, number one, was to get in shape. There was never this extrinsic motivation of, I want to post it on social media because, man, we're talking, this is 20 years before social media even came about, thank God, sometimes I wish we can all go back to that, but it was long before that. So it wasn't to get likes and applause and praise and you're the man and you go girl and all this, crap. No, it was that, he wanted to get in shape, a very good reason. He felt like he was a 55-year-old out of shape gym teacher, so to say, teaching at the college level. And he was embarrassed that he had trouble walking up the steps at the university. That was his first motivation. His second motivation was he felt like if he did an Ironman, so then he took it all the way to the distance of Ironman. He thought, if I can do that, I can do anything in my life. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty cool. So I started remembering the words of Roeder when I hit the beach. I'm like, yeah, if I can do that, then I can handle whatever scenario that triggers this claustrophobia that I had at the time and still can have it at times, but a lot better. And I think probably a lot better because I kept doing things that challenged it, physical things like physical fitness things give us like an opportunity to do things that maybe scare us, and then if we can do them physically, then maybe we can tackle it better mentally, So that's my challenge to you all. Like, what is it that kind of scares you? I've heard Stoic philosophers say, do something that scares you every day. Not stupid stuff, not reckless stuff, not things that are going to cause harm to you or anybody else, but irrational fears. Like me having a claustrophobic phobia, that's irrational, right? Because last I checked, I wasn't going to get trapped under a manhole cover, right? So it was irrational, which most fears and phobias are, right? 99% of them are irrational, right? The fear of the rabid dog isn't irrational. That's smart, But some of these phobias we get, some of these speaking phobias, some of these, claustrophobia phobias. Like I know people that don't want to get on airplanes, and I'm not making fun of them. I've been one of those people. I could still be one of those people because, oh man, I'm trapped. But it's irrational, right? I mean, well, I can't get anywhere. Well, that's true, but why do you need to get anywhere? Like you're safe. So it's irrational, And I can just give one more example of this. So when I was a little kid living in New York, we lived in this big farmhouse in Gardner, New York. And it was a, 2-story, if not 3-story, because we had a basement. We had a tiny little attic, which ain't hell no anybody going up in it. I mean, the place, if you went in the basement, it was already scary enough. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful farmhouse and I still go back and visit it. And, unfortunately, people who bought it for a business and they turned it into I think it's an insurance place. So it's kind of a shame because they took off the beautiful front porch, but beautiful house. I don't want you to think my parents were making us live in a shack because they weren't. We weren't wealthy by any means, but, we were fortunate enough to have a nice farmhouse. So in any event, as a little kid, it's still scary as hell to go in any basements or attics. So my dad, who, always wanted to be Mr. Prepared, decided that the kids need to know how to get out of the windows and down to the ground if there's a fire, which, it's not the dumbest thing to do because it was a wood house, or is a wood house. And, there was fires up there every once in a while. And, my sisters listen to this podcast, so I don't want to, throw them under the bus, but I will just for fun to make sure that they're listening. But they would have a tendency to kind of smoke some cigarettes here or there, which, to tell a little funny story, I know when they would sneak out at night because we all were in the upstairs, it's where the bedrooms were. And so what I used to do is lock their bedroom windows once they snuck out and then make them give me dollars to get back in. I'd charge them $1 a piece. I mean, I should have known I was always going to be an entrepreneur, So anyway, it worked pretty good. I made a few bucks here or there, and they got to smoke. So win-win. But in any event, don't know if that's why my father started this little fire drill deal he came up with. But he had one. And so he used to try to get everybody to go down this rope he made, Oh, I think back now, I'm like, good God. But a rope attached to the second floor of the house. It's a big house, right? So it wasn't as high as I made it out to be when I'm 5 years old, but it was, pretty high. And so they would all scale down the rope. And I remember I was just like this little 5, 6 year old chicken shit, and I would not go down the rope. And being the only son at the time, in the house, and the youngest, I was babied. So, my dad could be pretty strict on everybody but me. And so he was like, oh, it's okay. You don't need to worry about it. You don't need to worry about it. And so many times I look back and I'm like, God, I wish you would have made me do it, because it kind of created sort of this fear of heights in me, which, again, I mean, make me do it. Who the hell knows? But I'm the only one that put pressure on myself because I wanted to do it. And they're like, okay, I'll go outside. I'm going to go down the rope. And then I'd look down and I'd chicken out. I wouldn't go down the rope. So, they probably got tired of this and just didn't invite me anymore. So, but it stuck with me, And so then I can remember years later, right, doing these physical challenges and kind of telling myself I had this, fear of heights or falling or whatever. But challenging myself and making me do these different kind of like outdoor excursion things, like these, zip lines. Yeah, that's what I was trying to think of. So things like that. And I'm like, you know what? You got to do that. Or these different kind of mud run courses that would have these really high walls you got to climb. And, I would kind of fake it till I make it like, oh, no, I'm good, and do it, because I wanted to challenge that, So I can think of a couple of them that I did where you had to go to this cliff thing, not a cliff, but a cliff, but there's a lake underneath it. So it's not like it was dangerous. Again, I'm not advocating doing anything dangerous. It wasn't dangerous. I mean, it's dangerous if you're a moron and go head first, right? I mean, break your neck. I mean, yeah, it's stupid. That wasn't the idea. The idea was to stand there and just jump, just jump, land on your feet, hope there's not a alligator down there. If there is, you're, what. But anyway, and that was probably the most dangerous part. And that's what's funny, right? We tackle a fear and then, conquered it and then get your leg bit off by a gator. Anyway, might I digress? So, doing these things and jumping off into the water, I was like, oh, that was cool. And then, you know what? Then I wouldn't fear it. And I would do all these different mud run type things. So, for somebody that had nothing, I sure did talk a lot. So that's the challenge. Like, what can we do physically that's actually going to make us feel better about ourselves? Like, I know people I literally know a person that has walked the Appalachian Trail, and he did it all by himself, and it's 2,100 miles, I think it is. It's incredible. I mean, that is a physical fitness feat. There's no question that's a physical fitness feat, meaning who can walk that far? That by itself is hard, but he did it alone. Now there's other people out there, yeah, but, whatever. But that'd be the scary part to me, right? I mean, you're out there and you're like, man, like, what if there are dangerous animals, right? They're called humans, right? Idiots with guns out there, whatever. But, but I'm kind of kidding on that. But there's bears, there's all this, that in my opinion aren't going to bother you unless you bother them. But then again, I've never been out there. Right? So I couldn't imagine being 12 o'clock at night and all of a sudden there's 4 bears walking around you. Oh, they're not going to bother you. I mean, but he did it. He challenged it. And I know the guy. I know him after he did it. And I'm like, well, how was he? He's like, scary. He's like, he felt better for it. So what do you feel better for what you did? I mean, do you do a triathlon, a running event, a powerlifting competition, a bodybuilding show for the glory? And then afterwards you go, that didn't do it. Like, I don't know if I really feel better about myself. I've been there. But when I did that very first triathlon and I finished it because I was afraid of the swim and I didn't do it for awards because you know what? What ruined it for me for triathlons was finding out there was awards. I had no idea when I did my first triathlon. I was sitting at the beach really proud of myself for doing this, for doing the swim. And a friend goes, hey, go check out the results. You did pretty good for somebody that's never done one. I'm like, they score these things? True story. I had no idea they kept score. I just thought everybody went and everybody finished. And I'm like, sure you race. Everybody races a little, right? I mean, it's like human nature. Somebody's next to you. But like, I didn't know they took it further than that, and I wish I never did learn that because then it ruined it for me. My own ego problem. But, that was something I can say, yeah, I'm better for this. Doing my very first bodybuilding show, because, it was sort of the claustrophobia thing, get out there, stand in front of everybody basically naked and just stand there and take it, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, what if I panic, Like, I can't just stand there and freeze, So for me, I was so proud of the fact I went out there and challenged it. And then things afterwards, after we do these challenges and we keep doing them for ego gratification, it just doesn't cut it anymore, Just doesn't give you that same pump. So what is it, what is it that you can do that says, this is hard for me? And tell me, I want to know, what is it? I'm going to think of mine. I don't really know today, so I'm going to get back to you, but what is it that you can go, man, that was hard for me, my own challenge, and I did it. And I did it through exercise, sport, or training. Or maybe just some huge wellness decision. I don't know. I have no idea. But get back to me. That's your challenge of the week. Hope you enjoyed listening. And I appreciate you. Be Max Fit and be Max Well.